Greetings, delegates. My name is Katelyn Lobo, and I will be the head chair of ECOSOC for MBMUN 2020. I started my MUN career about, I want to say, 2 years ago, and it has been a phenomenal journey ever since. I've learned and I've grown so much, and I feel I am privileged to be chairing with you for this current Model United Nations. My co-chairs will be Shreyan and Ninad, and we are avidly looking forward to the debate and the progress you will bring in such an imperative issue. So for our committee this time, we are looking forward to discussing the improving of education in less economically developed countries, or as we will refer to them as LEDC. All right, so the Economic and Social Council is a body of the United Nations which looks over, obviously, economic and social matters. So we're looking at a body that conducts studies, formulates resolutions, recommendations, and conventions for the General Assembly, and coordinates the various activities of the United Nations. The Economic and Social Council is also known for its cooperation and collaboration with non-governmental organizations such as Amnesty International, and the phenomenal work it has done in recovering and improving the economic and social scenario of many countries around the world. All right, so a background for our issue would be the marginalization and the poverty in various nations that prevent the spread of education, the financial deficit of developing countries, and the inequality between girls and boys, and the education of girls in jeopardy. So with marginalization and poverty, we're looking at a lot of nations in which a majority of the population is uneducated and lives in penury. So nations like India, for example, live with almost 60% of their population below the poverty line. And this truly prevents more people from letting their children grow and get an education, despite the fact that schools are free, because they have a co-imbibed belief that the more hands you have, the more work you can get done. Then we're also looking at the financial deficit of developing countries. So we're looking at nations like Somalia, Yemen that do not have the capabilities or the financial resources to build schools, to have incentives to have students study. So these kinds of boundaries that prevent other students from getting the education they need and they deserve. We're also looking at the inequality between girls and boys, that is the jeopardization of girl education. Girls are more likely to be out of school due to cultural beliefs and cultural barriers. So we're looking at 36% of adolescent girls being out of school as compared to 32% of boys. We're looking at countries like Yemen, which have an 80% of girls not receiving an education. And this is prominently because certain cultures and beliefs propagate the idea that the male is the breadwinner and hence only receives an education. And more often than not, many countries also believe that if they were to, many cultures also believe that if they were to splurge on education, that it would be done mainly to a boy child, seeing as he would be the breadwinner, and less to the girl child. And because of these, we as a committee are aiming to tackle and to convert such social beliefs into believing that education is a fundamental right and that every human being deserves it. All right, moving on to definitions. So we have less economically developed countries who are looking at LEDCs. These are normally gauged by factors such as their more agrarian economies, and the disparity in wealth and the wage gap. And those are the type of issues you'd look at when you see a less economically developed country. And MEDC obviously is a more economically developed country. These type of countries are more industrially progressive. The societies and the education standards are a lot higher than LEDC. So we're also looking at IDPs, which are internally displaced persons. These people are displaced within their own nation, so they would be apart from a refugee, of course, and they are unable to escape their own nation, and they are either under the vindictive control of their own governments or of other people within their nation. And because of this, their displacement often makes it very hard for their children to get education and proper rights that they deserve. So we're also looking at refugees. These are people who are forced to flee from their nation due to violence, due to persecution, any number of reasons, political assassinations. And refugees often have it a triple-fold harder to accumulate and to assimilate into society, nonetheless getting an education they deserve, especially for their children. So the UN, in cooperation with the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, United Nations Human Rights Council, and various other bodies, including the ECOSOC. We hope effectively to tackle the issue of helping people who are not even within their own nation receive the detrimental right of the human right to education. All right, so we're looking at key parties. These are just some of the key parties mentioned. Others include various countries and their economic and social problems. However, we're tackling bodies of the United Nations and subsidiary non-governmental organizations. Right now, we're looking at United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, also known as UNESCO, which helps to improve world cooperation through education, science, and culture. We're looking at UNICEF, which is the United Nations Children's Fund, which helps providing humanitarian aid assistance to children around the world, be it refugees, IDPs, those in less economically developed countries. GPE is more of a non-governmental organization which hopes to gather funds, which is a global partnership for education, hopes to gather funds to mobilize less economically developed countries to build from stronger frameworks so that they can improve their education systems. The United Nations Development Program operates in about 170 countries around the world to help eradicate poverty, as we discussed prior, which would be a key issue in preventing the spread of education. So with bodies such as these and other bodies, we're hoping to effectively collaborate and come up with resolutions and ideas that would help inculcate and help improve education around the world. We do understand that it is a topic that has been done before. However, we are looking for solutions that are extraneous and eccentric, because in a world like today, we need solutions that, that bring forth and that really will put a change to the education that the world has been receiving. Also, in light of our scope of the coronavirus, we understand that it is a detrimental issue in our world today. And with that being said, however, we do strongly encourage our delegates to not jump onto the topic of the virus. We do believe education is a pivotal issue, but if such could be mentioned without the use of the virus, it would make our debate a lot smoother. All right. We're moving to the scope of debate. So we as chairs expect a flow and a rigorous flow of debate wherein you express your ideas, your thoughts, and your culture, and what you believe your country stands for and what you believe your country can stand against. We also understand and we recognize foreign policy. So we truly do hope that you stick to your foreign policy and abide with your nation's laws and regulations. However, it also has to be acknowledged that education is a fundamental right according to the United Nations mandate. All right, so for the scope of debate, we are looking for reasons for the lack of education. Again, the marginalization, the poverty, cultural barriers that prevent the lack of education, especially something that needs to be tackled in a lot of predominantly less economically developed countries, because it is a stereotypical belief that boys are more willing than girls to get an education and more deserving than girls to get an education. And we need to combat that fundamental belief before we can even tackle the issue of education. All right. So we're also looking at political issues, political instability. If we're talking about countries like Venezuela, the political instability within their country that hinders people from being able to receive the education they need. We're looking at countries that need financial assistance. So we're talking about nations that need the help of the IMF or the UNDP, UNESCO, that would donate or be willing to provide educational facilities, teachers that would help them grow and expand the area of education. We're also looking at different educational curriculums and their impacts, obviously coming from different nations and going to be different educational curriculums and the modus of studying. We're also looking at countries that could improve or possibly make it more lenient or transition from a more paper-based curriculum to probably a more computer-based curriculum or vice versa, and how that would accommodate with the country's economic and social beliefs. And obviously the incentives to increase education, which we believe are fundamental. India has the meal plan for children, which would provide meals for children that go to school in public education, obviously an incentive to increase children's attendance. We believe that such incentives are helpful, extremely helpful rather, to letting more children come into school and to providing parents more so the incentive they need to allow their children to go to school. So that being said, we hope that these are just a few out of the scope of debate that we believe that US delegates can address. Obviously, we are looking for new solutions and new ideas and new thought processes. So we really hope that, you know, you stimulate interesting debate, you counter argument, and you talk and you reveal what you truly think about this issue, and then how you truly believe we can tackle this issue. So we look forward to resolutions that are well thought out, very specific, and tackle the issue as they need to be tackled. All right. That being said, this is the end of the video. We truly hope as chairs that you put yourself out there. Remember, Modularity Nations is not just a platform for you to win an award, but it is a platform in which you can express yourself and you can truly put forward solutions that will help improve the world. I truly wish you all the best, and I hope that this video was helpful. We look so forward to seeing you as delegates, and we can't wait for the conference. Have a good day.